Welcome in for another episode of the Silver and Blue Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Sanchez. Joining me is my co-host, Corey Douglas. How are we doing, Corey? It is Christmas season, and this long-awaited Eagles matchup that we've talked about all year is finally here. It unfortunately doesn't have as much riding on it as we had hoped, but every Cowboys Eagles game is big. You can say this game doesn't matter all you want. It's still Cowboys Eagles. It still matters. How are we feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming into this game, like you just kind of touched on it, it's not as exciting as it, might have been or could have been a couple of weeks ago, when we were a couple of weeks out from this game. But like you said, Cowboys Eagles is always good. And then even the Jalen Hurts thing, him being out, is, that kind of puts a damper on the matchup as well. But it still doesn't take away from the fact that the Cowboys need to come out and kind of, to me, they need to send a message to this Eagles team, even if it is with Gardner Minshew, that we're here and you're gonna have to see us down the line, and we don't really care, who the quarterback is. But yeah, I mean, this is really a big matchup for the Cowboys.
Yeah, and truthfully, the division isn't over yet. Uh, Dallas needs uh, Dallas needs to win out, and Philly needs to lose out. And with this Jalen Hurts injury news, who knows? You touched on it. Jalen Hurts. It came out on Monday. Has sounds like the word is it's an AC joint issue. He's already been ruled out for this game on Saturday. And this is usually like a 1 to 3 week thing. So we'll see if he even plays next week. There's been a lot of rumors about how long he might be out, but this apparently is the type of injury that could linger into the playoffs. So this injury might matter down the road for Philadelphia. Um, but yeah, it's definitely not the matchup we thought it was going to be. Just in terms of like add in the fact that Jalen Hurts is out, um, and Dallas is what 3 games behind the Eagles for the divisions with 3 games to go. It's just it's just not quite what we had hoped. But again, it's Cowboys Eagles. So let's take a look at the injury report like we always do. Um, Cowboys got a lot. They got an illness that's going around, and they've been having a cycle of illness going around. Where on the practice report, you keep seeing, some sort of illness. They're out. A lot of different players have missed, a little bit of time here and there with something that's going around. And Mike McCarthy touched on it. And Micah Parsons, he was in the building today, but he missed 2 days of practice with an illness. Trevon Diggs was good all week, and then he is now questionable as he was a DNP today with an illness. But yeah, those are kind of the only Cowboys injuries. Leighton Vander Esch also, who suffered that neck injury against the Jaguars, he has been ruled out. Eagles wise, Tyree Jackson and Jalen Hurts are the only ones that have been ruled out. Everybody else seems to be a go for the Eagles. There's been a couple DNPs, but limited on their last injury report for from Thursday. The only 2 people that were DNPs on Thursday and have already been ruled out are Jalen Hurts and Tyree Jackson. Zach Pascal, their receiver, is questionable, but he was a limited participant on Thursday, so maybe he'll be able to play. But outside of Jalen Hurts, the Eagles are generally really healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And for them, I know they're probably in a situation right now where they're probably hoping to sneak a win out this weekend. Maybe not expecting a win this weekend, but if they can squeak one out, I think it sets them up really nicely going forward, heading into the postseason, where you can really get Jalen Hurts right. Because the word out of, it seemed like every reporter that's been talking about this Jalen Hurts injury in Philly has been like, it's not really a big deal. A lot of them are questioning how could it be a big deal if he sustained this injury in the third quarter and went to go on and play his best football at the
Mhm.
Chicago game in the fourth quarter. So it doesn't seem like they're too worried about it. Maybe just possibly a 1 week absence, and then possibly he has a chance to play against the Saints. But of course, if the Eagles somehow win this football game, it becomes a whole different issue. And then on the Cowboys side, as far as this illness, especially with Michael Parsons, is something that I'm kind of paying attention to, because if the Cowboys did somehow lose this game and you're coming up on a short week against Tennessee, I might even rest Micah Parsons for the remainder of the regular season, if they did lose this game, just because Micah Parsons hasn't looked right in, several weeks at this point. He's been nursing stuff all season.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing to be to be played for. I mean, I don't see Micah Parsons, especially on a short week against Tennessee, having that pound against Derrick Henry. You know what that's going to look like and be like. I don't see the part. I don't see the point in playing him. So that's kind
Yeah,
of where I'm at on the injury report.
it'll be interesting to see how Dallas handles these injuries down the stretch, just in terms of, like how like they can't do it yet, but just how they rest people. If they're absolutely locked into that 5 seed in week 18, I'd be surprised if they don't rest a bunch of people going to that. I mean, because they're just pretty banged up, especially on the defense. And biggest one is Micah Parsons. And let's face it, this team is not going anywhere without a great version of Micah Parsons. And as the season's gone on, his impact has just gotten a little less and less. He's still great. I mean, he had 12 pressures on Sunday, but it's not what we saw in the first half of the season. And this defense is really, really good still. But now with injuries in the secondary, they're really going to need the pass rush to ramp things up just so they can, that secondary is going to need every bit of help it can get going forward. So they're going to have to be careful with how they monitor injuries and, uh, you know, guys being nicked up here and there. They're going to have to be really smart about it. And you know what? The thing is, McCarthy, that's one of my favorite things about him. He's done a very good job of managing injuries, managing workloads. And yeah, I mean, it was no coincidence. And I've seen this discussed on Twitter before, and I agree. It was no coincidence that last year was the healthiest the Cowboys have been by the time they got to the playoffs. He's done a very good job of that. So I trust that they'll handle this well as we hit the home stretch. But with that all being said, let's talk about this Eagles offense and how they match up with the Cowboys defense. Let's face it, this Eagles offense is outstanding, Corey, and this struggling Cowboys defense, especially the secondary, are going to have their hands full on Saturday.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the last few weeks from AJ Brown and Devontae Smith has really come on, and Quez Watkins seems to make a big play every single week. They're getting Dallas Goedert back in the passing game this weekend. Yeah, there's a lot to handle even without Jalen Hurts. In the backfield you have Miles Sanders. And then I was listening to something today where they said that even without, if you take Jalen Hurts, his rushing numbers out of the playbook for the Eagles, they still average over 5 yards a carry. They have like 17 rushing touchdowns for the season. So this is a high octane offense. And this is a thing where if we see some of the turnovers on the flip side on the Cowboys offense to set the Eagles up with some short fields, it's going to be a problem. Even with Minshew back there at quarterback.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much their offense changes because, let's face it, Jalen Hurts is. I know the numbers are still good for their rushing attack, like you just talked about, without Jalen Hurts' numbers, but a lot of what makes their rushing attack so good is the threat of Jalen Hurts running, and how hard that is to deal with. Along with Miles Sanders and how good their offensive line is. But it's just hard to know how this offense is going to look with Gardner Minshew under center. But yeah, bird's eye view of their numbers this year. They're second in points, third in yards per game. They average 29.4 points per game, almost 400 yards per game. Fourth in rushing yards, 11th in passing yards, first in rushing touchdowns, just first in overall touchdowns. Just really impressive stuff from the Eagles defense. And there's been some comments in the media recently with Micah Parsons on Von Miller's podcast saying that he believes, he'll say, "Hey, is it Jay?" Talking about the MVP discussion, is it Jalen or is it the team? I think it's a bit of both,
Hmm.
and I don't think it's disrespectful to Jalen Hurts to say he's playing in an unbelievable situation behind an unbelievable offensive line with unbelievable receivers and a great tight end. Like a lot of most of the upper tier of quarterbacks would absolutely thrive in that system. Uh, and that would probably include our guy, Dak Prescott. So I'm sure that will be a talking point, especially, now we're really going to find out is it Hurts or the team since they're playing with Gardner Minshew. So yeah, I don't really know how things are going to look with Gardner Minshew under center. I really don't. It's going to be difficult to game plan for.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of saw a little bit of that in week 18 last year where, the Eagles still were able to put up 26 points against a lot of the Cowboy starters because, the Cowboys went into that game and took it serious. So I think the offense doesn't change too much aside from Minshew's just not going to run as much as Jalen Hurts is going to run or will run, and how much they, want him to run just because that offense is so much better, when Jalen Hurts can use his leg extend plays. I used the read option because if you remember in the first game against the Cowboys, the Jalen Hurts read option, getting Micah Parsons, making him make a decision
Yep.
was a big factor in this game. So maybe they won't be able to attack, uh, Micah Parsons like that in this game. But I still expect them to just run right at him, put him in a lot of different, actions to where he's having to make decisions once again. And we'll see if Dan Quinn and the rest of the guys kind of can adjust to this better than they did and quicker than they did in the last matchup.
Yeah, you're right, and that was a big story out of that game, and it was part of why the Eagles were able to beat the Cowboys in that game was because they just put Micah Parsons in so many binds where rather than try and go away from the elite pass rusher, they went right at him in terms of putting him in space, making him make tough decisions. So, one player that I'm really excited to see and hope he has a bounce back game is Demarcus Lawrence. Uh, he was really quiet on Sunday against Jacksonville. And I know he's banged up, but he's still been really, really good this year. And honestly, this has been some of the best football he's played all year. Um, I'm hoping for a bounce back day from Demarcus Lawrence against this Eagles offensive line because, we touched on earlier, this Eagles offensive line is outstanding from left to right. They got Lane Johnson, the best right tackle in the league, Jason Kelsey, the best center in the league. Mailata's been really good. They got Seomalu at guard, and I'm blanking on their other guard's name. I'll think of it in a minute, but yeah, this offensive line is just elite across the board, and they've been really good. And frankly, part of why this offense has been so good all year is they haven't really had any injuries. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. I mean, has there been I guess the only injury they've really sustained is Dallas Goedert missing a few weeks.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, it's been a
you're
healthy team.
yeah, they've very largely avoided injuries, and that's it's not taking anything away from them, but generally the best teams that are playing the best ball at the end of the year are the healthiest, and this is a very healthy Eagles team, obviously outside of the Jalen Hurts issue going on, but yeah, this offensive line is a handful, and I agree with a lot of what Micah Parsons said about Jalen Hurts. Where he said, "Is it Hurts or the team?" Everything around this offense, in my opinion, is predicated on their offensive line. This offensive line is outstanding, and they've led the way for this offense, especially with their rushing attack, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's been countless examples this season of, when the Eagles offense gets in a bind, they go to that run game. They take the ball right out of Jalen Hurts' hands
Yep.
and they put the ball in, Miles Sanders or, on the legs of Jalen Hurts. So, I mean, that's definitely something that has come up, multiple times this season, even in the first matchup against the Cowboys. When the Cowboys, kind of clawed their way back into the game, they went like on like 11 play drive, 75 yards, touchdown, and the majority of the damage was done on the ground. So this is a team that they're going to run the football regardless. I think they know that the Cowboys have kind of struggled with that, although they've kind of cleaned it up as of late. I think they're going to test it and see, okay, have you really cleaned it up? I think that's what we're going to see. They're not going to put Gardner Minshew in a lot of compromising positions where he gets behind the chains, a lot of, third and long situations. They're going to make the game easy for him. And Gardner Minshew has shown, with a bad Jacksonville team that he's capable of, putting up a performance. Now it's up to the Cowboys defense to, be able to, kind of stand up to them. Coming off a game where, you give up 40 points. Now, obviously, not all of it was, the defense's fault. They were put in some compromising positions. Then a pick six obviously comes into play. But Jacksonville did pretty much whatever they wanted in the second half.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think AJ Brown and, Devontae Smith are probably looking at the film and seeing one and seeing, anything aside from number seven, I think they feel pretty good about their chances.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the Cowboys secondary matching up with AJ J. Brown, Devontae Smith, who both have been so good this year. And, again, Dallas Goedert is back, so Jaron Kearse is going to have his hands full. One guy that I'm looking at that needs to be much better this week is Malik Hooker. He was so good early in the season, and he's tailed off a little bit. He's still been fine, but there with the quarterback issues, Dallas is going to need its safeties to be that much better. And truthfully, Trevon Diggs is questionable. So, hopefully he's going to be able to go. But now this Trevon Diggs thing is something to monitor. It's just that there's it's getting really dire in the Dallas cornerback room. And again, I keep saying it over and over again, but it's going to fall on the pass rush. And I think this Eagles team, and it's going to have to start with the run defense as well, because, without Jalen Hurts, with a backup quarterback, the Eagles are probably going to lean on that rushing attack a little bit more than they already do, just because they're so good up front. Miles Sanders is so good. If I'm the Eagles, I'm going in with a backup quarterback on the road in a tough environment. You can lean on that great offensive line and that great running back. So I think it's definitely going to start up front. And Dallas is going to need its defensive tackles to be much better than they were last week. And they're going to need DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, and Micah Parsons to show up in a big way to be able to slow down the Eagles offense. Because again, if you're going to take the stance that I have where, yes, Jalen Hurts has been awesome this year and he deserves credit, but like what he has around him is incredible and makes his life a lot easier. If you're going to have that opinion, which I do, you also have to acknowledge that maybe a decent backup like Gardner Minshew will be able to have some success behind all that. So the Eagles have a really good offensive staff. I think they'll be able to put together a decent game plan for Minshew. I don't think Philadelphia is exactly going to be rolling out a pumpkin in the pocket on Sunday or on Saturday. I don't think without Hurts, this is just going to be a bad offense.
No, it's no, and by no means is it going to be a bad offense. I mean, I think that, like you said, they have a great system over there, and the coaching staff that knows how to really, call plays and play designs, and really get the defense guessing, put the defense in compromising positions. There's no way that coaching staff is going to let them kind of roll out, a pile of garbage out there on the field on Sunday. And like I said earlier, this is a game that the Cowboys, or that the Eagles, they want to steal from the Cowboys. It's just going to make their life a lot easier. Go ahead and put the division away for good. Because there is a slight chance that they could still lose this division. And I don't think they want that to happen. Obviously, they want to clinch that number one seed in the NFC, and then they can start aligning things the way they want to, including the bye week and the playoffs, and so on and so forth from there. But yeah, this coaching staff they're going to have them prepared, and we already know how Sirianni is. He's not going to come into this Cowboys matchup, with his, resting on, oh, we beat them already. We don't have our quarterback, yada, yada, yada. And he's not coming in there looking like that. He's going to have his team prepared, and, the Cowboys are going to have to match them.
Well, yeah, that also just wouldn't embody Sirianni's fake tough guy attitude if he's going to keep doing this weird bit that he does. I'm sure he's going to be all fired up and juiced up on Saturday. I'm assuming he's going to be consistent with that strange bit he's done all year. But yeah, it's still just not a pushover of a matchup for the Dallas defense, even without Hurts. So I'm really looking at the defensive line on Sunday to step up in a big way. And, the linebackers. Van Der Esch is out. So without LVE, Damone Clark's going to have to step up. Anthony Barr is going to have to be much better than he was on Sunday. And it sounds like Jabril Cox is going to factor into things now. So I'm looking for a big day from the defensive line, and it's going to require a much better performance from the linebackers as well. Unless you got anything else on the Dallas defense against the Eagles offense, let's talk about the other way around. The Dallas offense against a really, really, really good Philly defense. And Philadelphia has a great defensive line. They have just a boatload of talent up front. But as good as that defensive line has been this year, and I believe they lead the league in sacks, that defensive line is going to cause a lot of issues for a Dallas O-line that has struggled to protect. I think an even bigger issue for Dallas is going to be that Philly secondary. with how good that secondary's been with Darius Slay, James Bradbury, uh, Chauncey Gardner Johnson. Just a
Who's now
lot of
out.
matchup issues. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many. I'm trying to name them all, and I can't. Um, this is definitely going to be an interesting matchup on offense. And Dallas was still able to move the ball a bit against them in the Cooper Rush game. I'm interested to see how Dak matches up with this Eagles defense.
Yeah, I think coming into this game, I think the Cowboys, they're just going to have to play, a really, disciplined football game where there's not the mistakes. Whether, there's been a lot of conversation about who to blame on the interceptions. Are they Dak interceptions or are they, whoever's interceptions? To me, in this game, we can't even let that creep up. I mean, the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, the entire offense, Kellen Moore, they're going to have to make sure they're calling a great game and making sure that they're keeping that Eagles offense off the field, keeping that defense, the Cowboys defense on the sideline, getting rest, making sure that they can devise a game plan in shorter doses against this high-tamed Eagles offense. But for me, the biggest thing for me is just taking care of the football this week. That's all I care about this week. Just take care of the football,
Yep.
please.
Yep, absolutely. The where I'm my biggest concern is, I know I was just talking about how their secondary matches up with the Dallas, lack of pass catchers, Darius Slay against CeeDee Lamb, and then Dallas has had massive issues at wide receiver 2 through 4. Can T.Y. Hilton make an impact? Just what are they going to be able to do? And it's hard to because we're talking about this Dallas we're talking about this Dallas offense like they have massive issues and they do. There's some problems that I'm worried about going into the playoffs, but bottom line is since Dak has come back, they've been one of the best offenses in all of football. Um, and it's just about how they manage that and they're able to keep that going. And I really just think it starts with the protection. Dallas has really struggled in pass protection, especially recently. Tyron Smith is probably going to be going at right tackle, but uh, the Eagles pass rush has a lot of guys that can get after the quarterback. Javon Hargrave has 48 pressures from the interior. Hassan Reddick leads them with 54 pressures. Josh Sweat has 41 pressures. Brandon Graham has 37. Fletcher Cox has 28. TJ Edwards has 11. Just a lot of players that can really put some heat on Dak. And again, I've harped on how worried I am about the pass protection. I think Tyler Smith is in for a really tough matchup. They're going to need him to be a lot better. Protection is going to be an issue for Dak on Sunday, and I'm or on Saturday. I keep saying Sunday. It's going to be an issue on Saturday. I'm a little concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, just whenever you get pressure, especially right up the middle, like you just mentioned, some of those numbers, heart rate coming right up the middle, having that many pressures, that's the worst thing that for a quarterback is getting pressure right in your face, where you can't see down the field, and if you don't have the ball security, you're gonna end in some sack fumbles. You're gonna set up the Eagles with some short fields. And you're not going to be able to get the run game off. You're going to be in third and long situations, which the Cowboys have, I feel like, have been in there a lot. And then Dak saves the day a lot of the times. But against this Eagles team, I'm not convinced against that secondary with Darius Slay and Bradbury, Garner Johnson. Luckily, he's out because I mean he leads the league in picks still, and he hasn't played I think in the last couple of weeks. So
Yeah,
it's a tough defense to go against. Jordan Davis, since he's been back, the numbers with him on the field against the run and with him off the field are like I think almost 2 yard difference. So I mean, this Eagles defense is stacked. And yeah, the Cowboys are gonna have their hands full.
yeah. Well, one thing to look at is how good Javon Hargrave has been. Uh, this is relative. So Osa Odigizua has had a good year, and he's been by far Dallas's best pressure player on the defensive interior. Javon Hargrave has 48 pressures with an 18.1% pass rush win rate. Osa Digizua, so that's the Eagles' leading defensive interior guy at 48 pressures, 18%. Dallas's leading interior guy, Osa Digizua, has 27 pressures to a 12.9% win rate, which is just, Osa's been really good, but Hargrave is just another level. And that just shows how much better Philadelphia's defensive tackles are because I mentioned earlier briefly, but we already been talking about Fletcher Cox, and they added Linval Joseph and Domkin Sue. So,
Hmm.
this Eagles defensive line is it's a lot to handle, and this is gonna be a big test for the offensive line. And Kellen's gonna have to get creative. He's gonna have to use a lot of play action. Uh,
Move
it,
the
Ty-
pocket, please.
yes, move the pocket. Some rollouts, just whatever you can do to make Dak's life easier, because Dak's life is going to be tough. He's going to be thrown into some tight windows on Saturday, and he's going to be getting some pressure because that this Eagles defensive line is no joke. Tyron Smith, he's going to have to settle in at right tackle real quick. Just with he struggled a bit on Sunday against Jacksonville. He's going to have to be much better, and so is this Cowboys interior. The whole offensive line. I'm going to different players, but the whole offensive line just has to be better. And maybe they're able to mitigate this Philly pass rush with being able to run the ball some. Because Philly, that is one area their defense has struggled with stopping the run. So maybe this is going to be a big Pollard and Elliott game. But this Eagles defense is a lot, especially up front.
Yeah, I was listening, or I saw some quotes from Tyron Smith today, just saying how, what his overall assessment was from his performance at right tackle against Jacksonville last week, and he pretty much said what you just said. I mean, he said he definitely needs to be better. He said he's in constant communication with Zach Martin, just making sure they're on the same page, and just making sure that he's coming into this game, ready to, play better, essentially is kind of what he said. So that's going to be big. Tyler Smith, you played this team once, and now let's see, the film study where that comes in. Starting to learn tendencies from some of these guys on the defensive line for the Eagles, so you can play, sound football, not commit a lot of penalties, not get your hands out of place, and where you're forcing yourself to hold and different things of that nature. But like you said, the entire offensive line is just going to have to play well, and we'll see if they can do that because they haven't shown on a consistent basis that they've been able to all season.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the Week 6 game box score, and Dallas really struggled with this Eagles pass rush on Week 6. So Zach Martin did all right. He only gave one pressure, but Terrence Steele at right tackle, who obviously isn't playing, but that's Terrence Smith's spot. He gave up 4 pressures. Tyler Smith gave up 4 pressures. Connor McGovern gave up 4 pressures. Although Connor McGovern was playing banged up at that time, and he's been much better recently, but I'm still not fully comfortable with Connor McGovern starting constantly. Um, so yeah, the Cowboys tackles had a tough time on in Week 6 against Philadelphia, and they're still going to have a tough time. In having Dak Prescott is going to help, but yeah, it's going to be tough up front. But this Philly secondary is what can be concerning. And with Dak's interception issues, I'm not going to get into the weeds of what all is his fault and isn't. I saw there's a stat that I think let me pull it up, but I think he leads the league in interceptions that were not like graded as turnover worthy plays.
Yeah,
Basically
he
means a
should
pick
have
more
six
than a
less, I
fault.
believe, is the number.
Yeah, and so and the thing is with this Cowboys offense and how it's designed with you know Jones boys football, uh, he's just thrown into tight windows just with how they run their offense and how much harder how much harder the Jones brand of football makes life on the quarterback. Um, it's just tough. It's tough, and they're gonna have to. Dak's gonna have to be sharp on Saturday for sure.
Yeah, and I think what a first game for T.Y. Hilton to kind of come out and try to be successful
Yeah,
against this secondary. I mean, he said that I think he calls himself, I think it was Casper or something like that. Because one minute you see him and then he's down the field running by
yeah.
you or something. He has some quote like that. Well, okay, we'll see. This week against this secondary, let's see what you got, Ty. Let's see if we're getting the Ty touchdown celebration. But obviously, it starts and ends, a lot with CD Lamb and how he performs in this football game. He has to come out, and he's kind of shown, he's been really good, obviously, for the majority of his career. But sometimes in these big moments, primetime games, he kind of gets in his head early in the game, and you'll see teammates going up to him, kind of, trying to pep him up, maybe if he has a negative play early. So this is a game where I kind of want to see him get the ball in his hands early and, try to get him established, try to get him, his mojo going. But again, Michael Gallup's gonna have to show up too, though. Like Michael
Yeah,
Gallup has been way, way, way disappointing. And I've seen a lot of the conversation in the last couple of weeks. So wow, the Cowboys really prioritize Michael Gallup versus Amari Cooper. Going back to that whole discussion. So Michael Gallup, I think, is the X factor in this game. I think if he can play well, have a decent game, I'm not asking for like 10, 11 catches, but 4 or 5, 60 yards, maybe get in the end zone, something of that nature.
just
We
don't
are
be
going to
invisible.
need that this week. Yeah,
Yeah,
just don't be yeah, you can't throw out there. We need to have one, no catches. Like we can't have that in this type of game. And if he plays well, it kind of takes some of the pressure off of CD. But obviously, CD is the alpha, and I expect Darius Slay to be on him a lot. So, but I still want to
yeah.
see him get the ball early.
Yeah, it's been fun seeing CD take the leap into being an elite receiver and being a number one receiver. And they're going to need some big boy football out of CD on Saturday. So, a lot of fun matchups on this Dallas offense against the Eagles defense. I think the best way for Dallas to have success is to try and attack that Philly run defense that struggled so much. Um, in just they're probably going to need a big day on the ground from Zeke and Pollard as well. So, let's get into some predictions. I'll let you go ahead first.
Ooh, this one has been a tough one, kind of going back and forth now. Obviously, the Jalen Hurts being out kind of sways my, I guess, thoughts on this game a little bit, but I still think this is going to be a very, very tight game. And I think it's just going to come down to 1 or 2 possessions. I do think the Cowboys are going to win this football game. Mostly just because I think they have to win this football game. You can't let the Eagles come in
Yeah,
here with a backup quarterback and beat you on your home field. Regardless of whether the NFC East is really attainable or not, this is a game that you have to kind of put some doubt in the Eagles' mind that, even with the quarterback, if we see you again in the playoffs, we're confident that we can go out into Philly and beat you on your home field. So I am going to pick the Cowboys to win this game. Like I said, I do think it's going to be close. I'm going to pick the Cowboys 20, let's say 29-23.
okay.
Um, somewhere in that nature, maybe a late touchdown, maybe it even goes to overtime or something of that nature. It's going to be a tightly contested game, though.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I don't think Dallas is just going to walk all over them. I think the Eagles' pass rush is going to give Dallas a lot of issues. Um, and I do think Dallas. I'm going to pick Dallas as well, just with Jalen Hurts being out. This just feels like a game where Dallas has to make a statement following the Jacksonville game. And they've responded well after losses this year. They responded to the Tampa Bay game with they won 4 straight, and then they responded to the Eagles game with getting hot again, and then after Green Bay they got I think
The
was the
Minnesota
Vikings
game.
one, was the
Yep.
Minnesota game right after Green
Yep.
Bay. Yeah,
Yep.
so they've just responded well to losses this year. They know how important this is, and they also know you cannot let the Eagles come in there with their backup quarterback and beat you on their home field. um, I think the defense is going to have a little bit of a bounce back performance. I think we're going to be surprised at how they play. I think we get a good Micah Parsons game. Um, I'm going to go Dallas. I'm going to go 24-17 Dallas. I think Dallas wins by a touchdown. They pull away in the second half. I think Eagles kind of keep this close early on, and then Dallas sort of takes over as we go on. And we keep we don't quite pull the plug on our NFC East hopes. We keep it on life support for another couple of weeks. So I think it's definitely gonna be fun. I got a buddy that has a couple that his family has a couple tickets and they had an extra, so I'm actually gonna be going to the game. So
Nice.
it'll be
Nice.
yeah, it'll be rocking. I'm excited. It'll definitely be a great environment. I kind of like that it's a Saturday game instead of a Sunday game. Makes it a little
Yes.
more fun. So,
Holiday
uh,
weekend. I love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Everyone's able to tailgate a little harder on a Saturday than on a Sunday, right? So,
Absolutely.
well, unless you got anything else, let's get on out of here, Corey. Are you ready for this weekend and the holidays? You did get all your
Yeah,
Christmas
I'm definitely
shopping
ready
done?
for the Yeah, I'm definitely ready for the holidays. Shopping is done. I really don't do too much, to be honest with you. I got some stuff for my girlfriend, and took care of her. Got some stuff for my mom. But really, this time of year is all about spending time with family, enjoying that time, eating some good food,
Yep.
watching football. This year on Christmas Eve, basketball and football on Christmas Day. So it's going to be a great weekend, and I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely can't wait. So again, saying happy holidays to all that to those of you that do listen. Happy holidays from both myself and Corey. We really appreciate
Absolutely.
you guys. So again, be sure to check out everything going on at the Dallas Sports Fanatic. Check me out on Twitter at Cowboys News 36, or check us out on Twitter at Cowboys News 365 and at Dallas_Fanatic. You can get me on Twitter at Nate_Sanch77. You can get Corey on Twitter at the Mr. Douglas with two S's. Thank you guys for listening. Happy holidays. And we will talk to you next time to break down this big Cowboys Eagles Christmas Eve matchup.
Yes, sir.